but sometimes, they're in these games and give people a run for their money. But yeah, no, they haven't figured out how to win yet.
Our next guest is one of the best. I put him in that Billy Belichick category when it comes to NFL insiders. Our good friend Aaron Wilson making his Football Playbook debut here. Good morning, Aaron. How you doing, brother?
Good morning. Doing great. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're almost unrecognizable when I'm used to seeing you all buttoned up. You're one of the best dressed media brethren when I see you on
vacation. Yeah,
I'm just casual Monday, or what is it, Tuesday morning here down there in H-Town?
Yeah, I'm just home, and I'm about to, after we talk, I got to get ready. I'm going to head over to NRG Stadium, home of the 1-5-1 Texans. We've got practice in a little bit, so yeah, good to talk to you this morning.
Yeah, no, I know. I wanted to get your finger on the pulse when it comes to the Texans, and it's hard to keep up with you, man. You're always on the move. Did you get a new gig?
I have a new gig at NBC, KPRC2 Houston, which is the home of the Levy Smith show. I'm still, as I've been for several years since I got here in Houston, with iHeartRadio, Sports Talk 790, which is home of the Astros and the Rockets. So I'm with some good people that are partners of the pro sports franchises here in Houston. So, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no, I love it. I mean, you've been covering the Texans, I hate to date you, but probably since their existence, right? So we want
7 years here and 15 years in Baltimore.
Baltimore, right? Yeah.
Baltimore Sun, yes.
So let's talk about Jalen Hurts, though, because he's the H-Town guy. Houston is his hometown. Philadelphia is on fire between the Astros and the Phillies. We got the Texans and the Eagles. Jalen said, I'm from Houston, but I love Philadelphia too, and that's how I deal with that problem. But one of the great Texas quarterbacks in terms of high school, Jalen Hurts is playing, Aaron, at an MVP level. I mean, I think he's an all-pro caliber quarterback for this season. We're only halfway through, but you see it in the MVP odds. I mean, he's putting himself in that category of Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. I've seen it on a weekly basis. You guys, the Texans, are playing the Eagles this week. Like, what is that outside perspective when you prepare for the Eagles? Like, where do you put Jalen Hurts in the quarterback tier?
I mean, he's one of the top 5 quarterbacks. He's having an excellent season, and because he's a dual threat, that makes him a little more special. And their record, if we're talking about awards, when your team is very successful and you're viewed as a central part of that, like he is, it's really essential to what they're doing, then that changes really not just the perception, but the reality of your value. But, do I think Josh Allen is probably going to wind up winning the award? Yes, but I think he'll warrant consideration. He's incredibly accurate. He's really a good example of why you should be patient with young quarterbacks. Give them some time. And he's riding high right now. I mean, the way he played this last game, that was outstanding football. All the touchdowns he's running for, the touchdown passes, the great touch. Shows, too, you need weapons. That trade for A.J. Brown, that's got Howie Roseman as one of my candidates for NFL Executive of the Year. So great move by Howie.
Yeah, then he just added Robert Quinn. Oh, by the way, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, Hassan Reddick, James Bradbury. I mean, I don't know. If Howie Roseman isn't the Executive of the Year, I don't know who is. But we're talking to Aaron Wilson, who's our NFL Reporter of the Year, and we'll get to some topics around the league. But you mentioned A.J. Brown is just a game changer, and I know you've seen him quite often covering the Texans, and they had a rough time with Derrick Henry this past week. As a whole, the Titans ran 40 times for 302 rushing yards, 7.5 yards per carry. It sounds like this Thursday night affair with the Eagles and the Texans, Philadelphia maybe should resort back to the ground game for this matchup.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they haven't stopped the run really against anyone. We're talking Jonathan Taylor. We're talking Khalil Herbert. We're talking Josh Jacobs. So until they can stop it, why would you stop running? They'll run the ball a lot, and I expect Miles Sanders and Jalen Hurts to find success against this run defense that's going to be missing their 3 technique Malik Collins. So he's not going to play in this game.
Okay.
Don't have Malik, so that's rough. He's really the engine of their defense. He's a good football player, but they have just switched up things at linebacker. Common Grugier-Hill, former Eagle, he asked for his release. He's still out there, and they have a situation with they're trying to get Christian Harris, who's very talented, third-round pick from Alabama, but he's still getting up to speed. He did have 7 tackles this past game, but he also missed a lot of plays, had some poor angles on Derrick Henry, and they had to bench one of their safeties, Jonathan Owens, because he missed so many tackles. They say he's getting his starting job back, but he's not played great. So that's one of those things where obviously it's an edge for the Eagles, a decided edge.
Yeah, I see the Texans still trying to find themselves. Nick Caserio comes in. I thought he's drafted as well as any NFL general manager over the last 2 years, period. But we've seen 2 head coaches in 2 years. I don't know if Levy's the guy. They've got 1 win. I don't know if Davis Mills is the guy. I'll ask you that after this question, though. Like, where are the Texans' strengths, and do they have any? I mean, they only got 1 win, and I hate to say it that way, Aaron, but like, if the Texans are 2 touchdown underdogs, but
they have a couple of good football players. They do have a nice tackle tandem with Titus Howard and Laramie Tunsil. Laramie's been to a Pro Bowl. Laramie's played really well this year, so has Titus. They've done a good job. They did a good job on Max Crosby and Chandler Jones. They didn't have a great game this past game, the entire offensive line, but that's a good area right there. Damian Pierce is a Rookie of the Year candidate.
I like that dude, yeah.
He's a really good running back, very violent running style, good vision, just a good football player overall, and a real infectious personality, good vibes with him, downhill, country boy is what he calls himself, and you saw his run against the Jaguars. That's what he's all about. That's not just one run. That's what he runs, and so I'm very sold on him. Then Brandon Cooks, who is a trade asset, been the subject of some trade inquiries. Not right now expecting a trade, but never say never. And we're a few hours away from the deadline.
Especially when it comes to Brandon Cooks, right? This guy's been traded like 6 times. What's up with that?
3 trades. If he's traded again, he'll tie Eric Dickerson for the most trades in the modern era.
Wow. Okay.
He's a good guy. He's usually a tradable asset in terms of his contract, and he's someone that people covet because not very few people are quite as fast. He's low 4.3s. And he still runs as fast as he did when he was a track stand at Oregon State. So, and Brandon's a high character guy that's pretty durable and pretty consistent. He's had 6 1,000-yard seasons. This year the stats are down, and we'll get to Davis Mills. But yeah, those are some of the strengths. And then on defense, he's injured, but John Grenard was an 8-sack guy last year. Steven Nelson. Steven Nelson's a really good corner. And then they have Derek Stingley Jr. who has a major upside. They have Jalen Petrie, who's a good safety from Baylor. And they're a little thin, some of their positions. Jerry Hughes is having a pretty good year at age 34, 5 sacks. So he can still get there. And that's, just a few of their good players. Their special teams, no one wants to hear about that, but they have a good long snapper in John Weeks, a good kicker in Kaimi Fairburn, and a really good punter in Cam Johnston, who from Philly. So, yeah, there's a couple of their players. I mean, they're a rebuilding franchise. They're not there yet. They're one of the worst teams in the NFL in terms of records. They do lose close generally. They lose in the fourth quarter, but sometimes they're in these games and give people a run for their money. But yeah, no, they haven't figured out how to win yet, and so they have a lot of things big picture to work on. How long will Levy Smith be here? I don't think he'd be one and done. I think he would probably be here for at least next season. That's our expectation. We'll see how Nick Caserio and the ownership feels about it. They like him, so see how they feel at the end of the year. And then Davis Mills, we had a good game against the Raiders, and he didn't play well against the Titans. It was his worst game, I thought, he'd played since his rookie year. So he's got to play better, I think, for him to even stay out there this year. I mean, at some point, could we see Kyle Allen if this continues at the rate it is right now? But, yeah, he's not showing us a lot. I was really encouraged by how he threw the ball against the Raiders, and then he really regressed against Tennessee. The ups and downs of a young quarterback.
There are a lot of roller coaster rides with young quarterbacks, and I promised to get back to Davis Mills, but you mentioned Jerry Hughes. The NFL trade deadline is today. Jordan Davis out 4 to 6 weeks. Jerry Hughes, 34 years old, doesn't really have much of a future in Houston. Still,
I don't know if I agree with that, Rick. I think he'll be here on the team next year. I don't think he'll be
really,
traded. Yeah, I think he's going to do 2 years. Then
okay.
He's not looking to move.
Well, why would the Texans hold on to a 34-year-old piece that?
Well, you already have draft picks. That's what a lot of people that make all this. It's not so much you, but a lot of and some of these are the national guys. I don't want to name names, but they're seeking attention, Rick. If you believe these guys, there'd be 30 trades, right?
Yeah.
So,
no, I get it.
So we're talking. I'm talking about. It's just the guys that are do a lot of nonsense trade scenarios. And they talk about this. They talk about that. If you already have a lot of draft capital, like Nick Caserio, and you already are starting 8 rookies, you want to start 20, first and second year players next year?
Right.
You're going to start 10 rookies next year? How many rookies are you going to start? So at some point you have to have some veterans and some guys that kind of show these guys the way. And that's why Jerry's here, is professionalism. So you just don't what would you get for him? What's the point of the 6th-round pick when you have a guy that is successful in the NFL that can get 5 sacks? And maybe he'll finish the year with, he's on pace for 10, right? Or 9 or 10. So
yeah.
I don't see the logic in it. I mean, I'm not anti-trade, but I know they're exciting and everybody gets into it. But, I'm logical. And I just wonder, why do you do things that don't improve your team?
And I appreciate the perspective, Aaron, and nobody knows better than you. I think you're the best Texans beat reporter, period. Our guys
try to have a perspective on it. I try to think about. I like to do an exercise. I do this a lot with people. What's their agenda? Where are they coming from? And how do they think? So, if you want to think like Nick, why would Nick do that? And I don't think he would.
Well, hey, that's what makes you such a great reporter. We're talking to Aaron Wilson. He's a reporter. He's an investigator. He's a private eye. He's a lawyer. I mean, this guy just digs up the facts, and that's what he's delivering here on the Football Playbook. His Football Playbook debut, by the way. It's been too long. My 45th episode here, Aaron. I really appreciate you blessing us with your presence.
Thank
you.
I
mentioned, you've been down there in Houston for the last 7 years, but when it comes to covering the league in terms of being an NFL insider and having a deep Rolodex, I've been doing this for 2 decades and like to think my Rolodex is pretty deep. You're one of the few people that I know that is probably even deeper. So let me just pick your brain around the National Football League. Let me ask you this. In terms of power rankings, I see it. I don't care what order you put them in. Eagles, Bills, Chiefs. That's tier 1. Is there anybody else that deserves to be in that category?
Not really. I think they're a cut above the rest of the pack. And, records matter, right? Well, Philly's the best team. Until somebody knocks them off. I really like to go off of performance. And the Eagles' performance warrants being first on the power rankings. Not that those power rankings get you anything. Can you ever get a T-shirt even for – we were first in the power rankings in week 7 or in the offseason.
Yeah, Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals published that shirt last year, Aaron.
They did? They did? I believe you. Maybe
I was joking, but they were 7-0. The Steelers, remember 2 years ago, they were 11-0, and then they dropped 4 to last 5, and they were 1 and done in the playoffs. But I don't know. I think this Eagles team is built differently. I think they have staying power, and I want to ask you this: in the NFC, after the Eagles, and I would say in the entire NFL, because a lot of people thought the power was in the AFC, but after the Eagles, Bills, and Chiefs, I would argue the next best 3 teams are in the NFC: Dallas Cowboys, San Francisco 49ers. And I'm curious to get your perspective, because I'm now a believer in the Seattle Seahawks. Are you ready to anoint them contenders, or do you view them at – see, I view the Vikings as pretenders, but I actually think the Seahawks are contenders.
I believe in the Seahawks. I think Geno Smith is for real. I think that their draft class – talk about good draft classes. I think that one's even a little bit better than Houston's, what John Schneider did. I mean, he really hit some home runs out of the ballpark. Yeah. So a lot of respect for what they're doing out there in Seattle. Yeah, I like Seattle. Especially
did I say the Texans have a shot to have two top 10 draft picks? Is that true?
Depends on how bad Cleveland finishes. Yeah, they do. Yeah, right now.
What direction? So is Davis Mills the long-term guy? Like, what's
not looking like it? No, not right now. I think that it's going to be an issue to go forward with him in 2023. Now, will they tell you that? No, their actions will tell you. If they draft a quarterback, if Davis, they tell you he's in a competition with the rookie. If the rookie starts getting the reps, but could I see him beginning next season as the 2023 starter, then giving way to a rookie? Yes, I think that's a scenario. And I could see him then being the backup and being a pretty good backup, right? It's not like they wasted or missed. He was a third-round pick, not a first-round pick.
Right.
This is like what's happening with the Jets and Zach Wilson, where there's a lot of questions about whether Zach's ever going to be good, right? And that he's maybe holding back the Jets. This is different. This is part of a rebuild. As bad as he is, other people are bad here too. It's not like he's alone.
I'd be curious. No, I know you're up against it. We're up against it. I'd be curious to know if the Texans and Nick Caserio have been out scouting C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young and some of these other quarterbacks.
They scout the SEC, yeah. But they were doing that anyway. I mean, they scout. Like any team, you have to get out there and go and look around and kick tires. But yeah, I mean, they're a big SEC team. Like they have John Mechie here, they have Christian Harris here. They drafted 2 Bama guys, and sure, they'll look at Ohio State, they'll look at Bryce Young, they're going to look at all those guys. They'll look at Herndon, they'll look at Levis. Yeah, they're going to be out there scouting. They're still scouting.
All right, fair enough. Aaron Wilson here, you out there, the Football Playbook, chopping it up, breaking it down. 1 or 2 last ones for you, Aaron.
Yes.
I want to just ask, and if you haven't heard or you don't know, it's all good. I'm putting you on the spot. I saw a rumor Bill O'Brien could be heading to Auburn. Have you heard anything on that?
No, I have not heard that Bill will go to Auburn.
Okay.
I'm sure he could get an interview, but yeah, I have not heard that he's like on a front runner as far as getting a job. But no, I haven't seen that or heard that.
The other thing I want to ask you, it just came out a day or two ago, so there's a good chance you may not have seen it, but if anybody did, you might be the guy. Did you see this interview by Antonio Brown on Value Entertainment on YouTube a couple days, like a day or two ago?
The last stuff I was hearing about him was him trolling Tom Brady about Giselle, which I thought was tasteless. And then obviously his behavior was below the standard, which you would want to behave for most reasonable adults. I mean, AB, he won't play again. He'll just continue to, be a clown. I mean, AB is a waste of talent and a waste of potential. He had his moments. He had a great run.
Yeah.
He made it work with the Steelers. If he had been more respectful, he would have been a Steeler. He would have continued to make a lot of money. Leaving the Steelers and alienating Mike Tomlin and all those fine people in Pittsburgh was the biggest mistake.
Beginning to the end. Yeah. And you know what's funny, though? And I'm going to tell you and our listening audience at home, I'm going to do you guys a favor because he goes into his Steelers situation, why he did what he did against Brady. Value Entertainment, there's an interview with Antonio Brown. Now, it's 2 hours long. I'm going to do you all a favor because the first hour and 15 minutes is all CTE. What's wrong with Antonio Brown? There's some serious issues there, but fast forward to like an hour or 15 minutes into the interview. It's a 2-hour interview. It took me 2 or 3 nights to get through it, Aaron, but the last 30 to 45 minutes is pretty fascinating conversation. So
I have time. I'll try to get to it on this short week. Maybe not, but maybe after the game, I could check that out. Yeah. Send that to me.
I will. And the last one, as you mentioned, it's a short week. Philly, 2 touchdown favorites here against Houston in Houston. You don't have to give me a final score prediction, but how do you see this game? Is this going to be a blowout? Is it going to be closer than people think? Which do we expect?
I think they win comfortably by 10 to 14 points. So yeah, I expect them to win the football game. I don't no upset specials here.
All right. Hey, appreciate the time, brother.
Great
Tell the
stuff.
listening audience at home what you have on deck, all the great content you have coming out, where to find you, all that good stuff.
www.click2houston.com, and I'm on Twitter at @AaronWilson_NFL and Instagram AaronWilson7128.
All right, there you have it. Thanks, Aaron, so much, man. Appreciate the time.
I appreciate it.
One of the best in the business.